In this video, we'll learn HTML5 and CSS3 by designing this responsive, mobile-friendly website from scratch. First, we'll learn all of the HTML and then the CSS, adding our media queries last to give the website its responsiveness. Okay guys, so let's take a look at the Rocket design layout here on my computer. So as you can see in the upper left hand corner, we have the RD logo for Rocket design. Then we have the navigation off to the right up here that's going to change as we hover over it. Then this great big colorful banner beneath it with the 4 column sections that have icons there, and then the main body section of the website is going to feature these really cool hovering text sections with transparent images floating above them. Then we have the 3 column section, the footer section with the social icons, and then the socket, which is kind of that lower section with the Rocket design text. So I'm really excited to share this stuff with you guys because later in the video I'm going to show you how you can put your own icons in here. So let's flex the website down now, and I'm going to show you how it transforms into the mobile and tablet version around 768 pixels. So it's going to transform into this 1 column website with the drop down menu, and then if we scroll down, we're going to see that all of the text and titles have actually changed their size, including the icons at the bottom. So now I'm going to flex it up, and let's take a look at how it's going to kind of keep its form even when we flex it past, say, the 1200 pixel mark, which is pretty standard for most websites. So as we flex it up, you'll find that even these floating text sections keep their form with the images no matter what width we bring it to. Let's take one more quick look at the mobile version for how it's going to appear on an iPhone 7, and then we'll get started. So the one thing that we'll need to get started for this video are going to be the starter files that I'll link from the description of the video to my website where you can download them. So go ahead and just pause the video for a moment so you can just download the starter files, and then I'll see you back here in just a second to get started. Make sure that you have index.html and style.css in your text editor. I'm using a program that's totally free. It's called Sublime Text, and you can do a Google search for Sublime Text and download that for Mac or Windows or Linux. And then the color layout that I'm using here is, if you go up to Preferences and then Color Layout in Sublime Text, this is going to be one of the styles towards the very bottom of the list of colors that you can use. So let's go over the document here in index.html and get started. So we have the actual HTML tag right here that spans the entire document. Then at the top we have the head section, and beneath that the body section, which is standard for any and every website on the internet. Okay, so inside of the head section we have the meta char set, UTF-8 for our standard character set, meta name viewport width device width initial scale 1. For mobile websites you want to have that meta tag, and then we have the title of the website here, which I'll show you where that displays in a minute. And then beneath that, let me just show you where these files will be referenced. We have the style.css sheet, which is right here, and that's going to link to that. And then inside of the CSS folder, we have the font awesome style sheet. So let me just show you really quickly in the actual website layout where these font awesome icons are. So these are going to be sort of the HTML and CSS and social media icons that we're seeing throughout the website here. Those are generated by that really cool little program called Font Awesome that's going to be included in there. Then at the very bottom of the head section here we have, and this is the Font Awesome folder by the way, but you don't have to worry about changing any of that stuff. So we have here the fave icon. So that's this little RD image right here, and that we're going to be linking to. And let me show you where the fave icon and the title of the website appear. So here I have it opened our starter files open in a blank document, and there we have our fave icon up to the top left, and then we have the title of the website beneath that. So when you do a Google search, the title of the website is going to be the largest and boldest text that comes up in the search results for your reference. So okay, now let's drop down, and I'm going to create a little bit of space here, and we'll start laying out our first tag of the design. So just remember to have your blank version open in your browser, and let's go ahead and get started with the header of the website here, which is going to include the logo and the navigation at the top. So we'll just reference the header using the HTML5 tag called header. So do an open header tag and then a closing header tag here with our angled brackets and the forward slash, at least for the closing one. And then inside of our header, what we're going to have is a little wrapper, which I like to call it, and a lot of other people do. So this is basically a tag that's going to keep all of the header information at a standard width. So while the other sections of the website are flexing at 100% of the width of the website, the wrapper is going to allow us to center and keep a maximum width on certain sections of the design. So let's go ahead and create a little wrapper inside of our header section, and you're going to get a much better understanding of what I'm talking about when we style the website in the CSS later on in the series. And we'll just call this div ID wrapper a header inner. So wrapper isn't really a technical term. Wrapper with a WR, that's typically what most people will call the inside of a website layout when it has a max width. So then beneath that, let's do a link for our logo here. So ahref is for a link in HTML, and then we'll just give this link an ID of logo, and later on in the CSS we're going to have the logo over here to the left appear. So then we can already drop down to our navigation underneath the logo within the header and header inner wrapper. And so I'm actually going to change this to index.html, so when we click on the logo it's going to bring us back to the home page rather than the hashtag, which is just a kind of a blank link and doesn't bring us anywhere. So beneath that, let's do the nav tag, which is an HTML5 tag here. And then inside of our navigation, what we'll write first is an ID for the menu icon that appears on the mobile version. So just write ahref for the link, and then this one we will want to keep it as a hashtag so it doesn't send us anywhere other than open up that menu icon with the menu on mobile, which we'll style later, and we'll just give this an ID of menu-icon. And let me just show you really quickly here with the menu icon and where that's going to appear. So that's going to be this little 3-bar icon for the mobile version. Okay, so now let's lay out our list or unordered list for our navigation. So we have a UL for unordered list, and then inside of an unordered list we have what's called list items, which is the LI tag, and inside of each LI tag we're going to have the links for the navigation. So just write LI, and then inside of our list items we're going to have a link, which is a ahref tag if you remember. So just write index.html inside of the first link here, and then we're going to give this a class called current, so later when we style it in the CSS we'll know, or the browser will know rather, that that's the current navigation item and we want it to be a different color than the rest. And then in between the A tags for the link, just write home, which is going to be the actual text. And then if we refresh the version that we have up in our browser for the one that we're working on, you'll just see the home links appear here. So now let's lay out the rest of these list items here. And if you're wondering how I'm just able to get these tags to display so quickly, I'm just pressing enter once it recognizes the tag that I want to display here in Sublime Text. So I'm just going to write the rest of these list items out real quick for the rest of the navigation. So li and then the ahref tag inside of there for the link. And then I'm going to go back over so I can remember what these pages are we're going to be linking to. So instead of having the link here, we're just going to put the hashtag symbol so it doesn't send us anywhere yet. But when you're creating a multi-page website where the hashtag sign is, that's where you want to put the HTML document or the link where you want to send people when they click on that navigation link or button that you're creating. So we have home, skills, portfolio, our team, and then contact is the last list item. So now if I refresh the one that we're working on, there we have all of our links displaying up there. And you know that it's the unordered list when you see the dots there next to it, but we're gonna take care of that obviously when we style the navigation in the CSS later. So now we can drop down beneath the header, and I'm just going to create a small note or comment here in the HTML saying that this is where the header is ending, and the header just ended there. So that you're not going to see display in your web browser, so you can write whatever you want inside of the little comment tags. So now what we'll do is let's just lay out the banner image here for the Rocket Design kind of responsive banner. And if you notice, it's going to be centered just like the navigation and logo in the header above. So we're going to give this a banner also. So what we'll do is we'll create a section class called banner, and then we're going to give it the wrapper. I think I said banner. We're going to give it a wrapper here. So let's just call it banner inner for this class, and that's going to keep it centered and at a certain width when we style it later, while still allowing for the color, which is what we're going to give it inside of the banner class above, that's nested, that the banner inner is nested within. So now let's just create a link, or sorry, image rather, for the banner image here, and that's just going to be image source, or imgsrc, and then in the quotations we're just going to put the file extension for that image. So this is going to be img / for the folder, and then rocket _ design.png. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just refresh, and now we'll see this great big Rocket Design image displaying here in the version that we're working on. Okay, so now let's go back, and I'm just going to create another quick comment to section things off, writing that the banner is ending here. So I'll just write end space banner and then close that comment off. Okay, so now what we can do is we're going to drop down and we're going to create the 1/4 sections of the website where we have the icons and the title appearing underneath. So here are the 1/4 sections. And then for reference, here it is in the wireframe that I created. So let's use the section tag to make these 1/4 sections here. And we're going to give this a class called 1-4 to make it easy on ourselves because they're 1/4 sections. So since this 1/4 section is going to be a different color and have different style than any of the others, we're going to also give these an ID in addition to the class for the 1/4. So we're just going to give this first one an ID called HTML, And then we'll do the same with the rest of the 1/4 sections to separate them from one another so we can apply different colors later in the CSS. So now let's style the icons, so the HTML5 sign there. So we're going to nest this within a TD tag, which stands for table data, which will make it very easy for us to center and allow more style for the icon later on in the CSS. So inside of the table data tag, we're going to create an I class tag for the Font Awesome icons. Now I is really for italics, but Font Awesome uses the I tag to reference the icons. So that I class is going to be FA space FA dash HTML5, and now we have the really small little HTML5 icon displaying here, which we'll style later to be that big white 5 icon there that you're seeing. And then beneath that first icon, let's create a header 3 tag, and we'll just call this HTML. So beneath this 1/4 section, let's go ahead and repeat what we did above with another 1/4 class, and then we're going to give this its own unique ID so we can style that box later with that sort of brownish color. So this is just going to be an ID called CSS, and then let's drop down and add another table data tag here with the icon for the Font Awesome CSS3 logo inside of it. So just do I class FA space FA dash CSS3, and we're going to go ahead and check out the icon in a second, and then beneath that add another H3 tag, and we'll just call this one CSS. So there we have the first of our icons displaying there with the HTML5 and CSS3 logos or icons. So now let's do the same thing for the last two, which will be for search engine optimization or SEO and the social one. Okay, so we'll give this another 1/4 class, and then we'll give this an ID called SEO to make it easy on ourselves, and then our table data tag, and then the I tag, and the class for this I tag for the Font Awesome icon is FA space FA dash search. Okay, and then let's drop down again and we'll add our heading 3 tag here, which is going to be SEO, and I'll close the heading 3 tag. Okay, and then let's drop down and we'll do our last one in a second. So there's our SEO stuff there on the left, and then again section class 1/4, and we'll give this one an ID called social. So remember, a good practice with HTML is you use the class multiple times on the web page, but the ID once, and that's a good way to separate them for using one or another. You can do it. You can do a lot of IDs if you want also. It's still going to show up. It's just good practice to do that just once with the classes multiple times. So the last table data icon is going to be FA space FA-users, and then we'll call this social. Okay, so there we have all 4 displaying, and then we can drop down and create a comment saying this is the end of our 4-column, 1/4 or 4-column, whichever you want to write, 4-column section. So there we have it, the end of our 4-column section. Okay, so now let's drop down the page and get started on the main body section of the website, where we're going to have kind of the floating text sections and images next to them. So these are going to be inside of wrapper sections. So let's just call this section class inner dash wrapper, and then I'm going to go over to the finished Rocket Design version to show you what I mean with where this wrapper is going to be. So if we drop down beneath the 4-column section, the wrapper is going to include the image, in this case on the left, and the text section off to the right. So it's going to be kind of a box nesting these 50% sections inside of it. So the inner wrapper will be 100% width for the desktop version we're working on now before we get to mobile later in the CSS, and then the image and the text will be 50% sections. So for the image, we're going to use the HTML5 tag called article, and we'll call this article ID tablet, and then let's put the tablet image in here, or iPad image. So we're going to reference the images folder here. So it's going to be img / and then hand_iPad.png. So img / hand_iPad.png. And the reason for the PNG image files is I always like to use PNGs because we can have a transparent background in that image with the PNG. So you'll see what I mean right here. So there we go. There's no background image to this image, no background color rather. It's just transparent. And so we're able to have that kind of blue color behind it here. So let's move over to the right of this article tablet ID, and we're going to create the HTML5 tag called aside. And we're going to give this aside tag an ID of tablet also. Okay, then drop down and we're going to have a heading tag here, which is going to be larger than what we used in the 4-column section. So instead of a header 3, we're going to use a header 2. And if you remember, the smaller the header number, the larger the text is. So header 2, H2, and we'll say mobile.tablet.desktop. And then we can drop down and add the paragraph text, which is just going to be referenced with the letter P in that tag. And I'm going to, instead of writing everything out for the paragraph stuff at least, I'm just going to paste in the text from the design we're working on here. So you can just put in whatever text you want, paste some text in there, or just do filler text for now. And there we have the image, heading 2, and paragraph text displaying in the version that we're creating here. Okay, so now beneath this inner wrapper, what we'll do is drop down and create another inner wrapper for the next text and image section. So this section here, which is going to span this 100% width to include the text on the left and image on the right with the hand holding the mobile version. So we're going to give this another wrapper class, and we'll call this section class inner dash wrapper dash 2. Okay, and then within that, similar to us adding an article above, we're going to call this article ID mobile, because this is where our mobile website image is going to display with the hand. Okay, and then inside of this article ID, let's do our heading 2 for across each device, and then the paragraph section here. And that's my mistake. I spelled across wrong. How embarrassing, right? It's 1 C. So across across for the heading 2, each device, and then you can drop down beneath the heading 2 and add the paragraph tag here. And I'll just paste in the text from the original version here to save us a little time. And beneath the article tag, we're going to create an aside tag just like we did above. And in this case, we're going to reference the mobile version of the images. So just write aside, and then inside of there, we're going to do our image tag to have the hand holding the mobile website. So this is going to be the image img hand mobile. So just write img source or img src and then image /hand underscore mobile dot png. Okay, and then if we refresh our version, there we have the hand displaying there with the transparent background using the PNG extension. Okay, so let's go back up here and we're going to do our last wrapper for this last 2-column section here with sort of the main section of the website, and we're going to have the desktop image with the text to the right. So go ahead and drop down beneath that last inner wrapper section we created, and we're going to create a third section inner wrapper. This one we're just going to call plain inner wrapper because this is going to display the image on the same side as it did with the first inner wrapper, rather than having the image on the right in the inner wrapper 2. So beneath that section class tag, we're going to create an article tag here, and we're going to have this desktop image inside of the article tag. So that's just going to be the image desktop.png. Okay, so image source, and then remember to do img /desktop.png. Okay, and then if we refresh, there we have that really cool desktop image of the rocket design displaying with the PNG transparent background. So let's drop down, and within this section, the inner wrapper section here, we're going to add the aside tag where we're going to display the text. So if you remember, it's that orange boxy text section to the right of the desktop image. So just write the aside tag, and we're going to give this a class and call it an ID, and we're going to call this desktop. Okay, and then inside of there, we're just going to add the paragraph text displaying in this orange background section, and I'm just going to cheat a little bit here once again and paste the paragraph text here to save us some time. Alright, and then if we refresh it, there we have our text displaying underneath the desktop image. Alright, so it's coming along pretty good. So we're working our way down to the bottom of the document, and next what we're going to do is the 3-column section. So let's just write a quick comment saying that this is the end of the main 2-column sections, and then we'll start our 1/3. Okay, so drop down beneath that HTML comment that, if you remember, is hidden, so you can write whatever you want and it won't display on the website. And we're going to start with these 3 columns that we see here: Google search, marketing, and happy customers. Okay, so we're going to give this another inner wrapper, a section class inner wrapper, and this is going to span through all of the 1/3 sections. Okay, so section class inner wrapper, and then inside of this we're going to have the 1/3 section. So inner wrapper 3, And that's going to allow us to have that turquoise background color kind of behind each one of the 1/3 sections, so it stays that color when we flex the website and it changes widths. So we'll get to that in the CSS. So let's give this first section class a 1/3 class and then an ID of Google. So similar to the 1/4 sections we did above, we can have this displaying at a different background color later in the CSS referencing that ID. Okay, and then we'll drop down and let's do an H3 tag for the Google search text. And then beneath that, the paragraph text here. Okay, so now if we go back and refresh, we have the H3 there and then the paragraph underneath. Okay, so next let's do this marketing section. So drop down underneath the 1/3 section and let's create another section class 1/3 and then we'll give it a separate ID from the Google ID we're seeing above. So section class 1-3rd and then ID, and we'll just call this ID marketing to make it easy on ourselves. Okay, and then in there, once again, we're going to add a heading 3 tag for the marketing text and then the paragraph text underneath. So H3 and then marketing and then paragraph with a P, and then I'll just put this text in here. Okay, so now if we go back and we refresh the page, we're going to find that we have the marketing heading 3 tag and then the paragraph tag underneath displaying on our content page here that we're working with. Okay, so now let's go back and let's do the happy customers 1/3 section here. So I'll drop down and do the last 1/3 class. So just again write section class 1-3rd and then we'll also give this an ID. So the ID for this, let's just call customers. Okay, and then drop down and we'll do the heading 3 and paragraph text. So the ID for the customers bar is going to be the same color that we'll use later in the CSS for the inner wrapper 3, which all these 1/3 columns are nested within. So as I said before, when we flex the website up and down, giving it different widths, and I'm just going to add a comment here saying end 3-column section, then the Google search and the marketing will still have the turquoise color, that kind of mint green color behind it when we flex. So you'll see what I mean when we style it in the CSS. And I keep saying that, but really designing websites with HTML and CSS is knowing the CSS. This HTML stuff is pretty easy. I hope you can agree with me so far. So now let's drop down and let's create the little smiley face section, which is going to get its own section ID just for that smiley face, and then we'll do the social media stuff in a minute. So just drop down beneath the comment for the end 3-column section note and just write section ID, and we'll just call this smiley. And then this is going to be within a H2 tag, so I'll just do the colon and then the closing parentheses there. and then let's just write a note saying end smiley face. Okay, and then if we refresh our version that we're working on, we're going to have the heading 2 smiley at the bottom there. So now let's drop down to the footer section in the blue here, and we'll get started and we'll lay out these icons, which is probably my favorite section because the font awesome icons look so clean when we're hovering over them and they're changing colors. So beneath the smiley face comment here, let's drop down and we'll do the HTML5 tag called footer. So open and close the footer tag, and then within that we're going to create an unordered list similar to the navigation we did above, and we're going to have a class for this unordered list. So we're just going to call this UL class social for the social media buttons, and that's going to look just like the unordered list with the list items we did with the navigation until we style it. Alright, so let's go back over and we'll drop down and add our list items similar to the navigation up top. So we're going to have the LI on the outside of this. Inside of our list item we're going to have a link, and I'm just going to have it link to my Facebook page here, and you could add whatever link you want. And then inside of the link we're going to have our I class referencing the font awesome icon. So we have LI, A, and then I. And this is going to be the I class FA space FA dash Facebook, and that's how we'll reference each one of these icons. It's pretty self-explanatory with font awesome, at least. There we have our Facebook icon when we're referencing icons like this. So it's going to be Facebook, Google+, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. So one other thing that we could do inside of the link itself is write target equals, in quotations, underscore blank. And what that's going to do is when somebody clicks on that link, it's going to open up a new tab rather than them navigating away from your website. So I always recommend the target underscore blank when you're linking people to social media sites or another website. But if it's to another page on your own website, I say don't put the target underscore blank in there. Okay, so then we have another LI list item, A, for the link, and then inside of that we have the icon for our Google Plus font awesome icon. So this is FA dash Google dash plus, and I'm just linking there to my personal Google Plus page. Okay, and then if I refresh, there we have our second icon there displaying underneath the Facebook. And now let's drop down and we'll add, if you want, you can add the target underscore blank to each of these. I'll just leave it in that top one for now. I just wanted you to know about that so you can send people to a new tab. Okay, so I'm just going to paste my Twitter URL in here, and then I'll add the icon for the Twitter logo. So this is going to be iClass FA dash Twitter. Okay, and then we can drop down and do YouTube and then Instagram. So once again, inside of the LI tag, we'll have the ahref link, linking to my YouTube page, and then the icon here with the class, in this case of FA dash YouTube. Okay, and drop down and we'll do the last one for Instagram. So nested within LI, we have the ahref, and I'll link to my Instagram page here. And then inside of that, we have the icon class, FA Instagram. And remember that I doesn't actually stand for icon, it stands for italic, but that's how Font Awesome references these icons here. Okay, so now we have all of our icons displaying. Let's drop down and we'll do the second little footer section. Now some people will call this a socket. That's the proper term for it underneath the footer, but there's no socket HTML5 tag to my knowledge at least. So we're just going to give this a footer class. And I'll have to double check that. Correct me if I'm wrong on the socket tag, but we're going to give this a footer class of second. And then inside of that, we'll just do a simple paragraph tag with ampersand or and copy, and then semicolon rocket design. So that's the HTML tag for the copyright symbol. And then we'll just write and second footer. And that includes all of the HTML for the Rocket Design website. So now let's move over to the style.css file. So let me just size this down a little bit, and that first style at the very top there, that's called a Google font. So if you do a Google search for Google fonts, you can select your own font styles and use the import tags so you can reference them later when you're styling headings and paragraph tags, for example. Okay, so now let's move to our first style, which is going to be on the HTML document itself. So that's going to span the entire document, as you know, and we're just going to reference this, and this is called a reset style with an asterisk. So just write asterisk and then open and close the swirly brackets. And so inside of the reset, we're just going to give it a margin of 0, padding 0. And what this is going to do is this is going to tell the web browser that you need to get rid of any inherent style that you want to put on the document. So 0 margin, 0 padding, and 0 border. So now if I go ahead and refresh, you'll find that all of the text and stuff that was lining up on the left-hand side that had a little space to the left of it is now gone. So we have the complete sort of browser to work with without it trying to push any styles on here. So that's called a reset. A lot of people use a little bit more information in a reset, but I think that's all we really need so we can just work with the entire sort of browser space, I guess you can call it. So now let's move down and style the body of our HTML document, which is going to include all of the content that we see displayed on the website. So we're just going to give this a background color, and we'll give it a background color of F5, F5, F5. So now we're not really going to see that background color. There it goes in sort of a little bit of a darker white with the gray mixed in. We're not going to see that with the completed version because every section is going to have a color, but I think it's good practice in case you want to come back and modify the design later. You can reference that background color. So next we'll give the color for the text this default color right here, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's going to be kind of a gray instead of having the black. And then we're going to give this a font family, and we'll reference the font up here for Google Fonts. And that's going to be Allegria, and that's a sans serif font. So we'll just write comma sans dash serif. So as I said before, the background and the color of the text, we're not really going to see that display on the full width, but I like to work with something that we can see and looks nice before we get to actually adding all those cool styles or cool colors in the style that we're seeing with the finished version here. So later we're going to change this text to white. Okay, so now let's go back, and we've given that a margin of 0 there. And let's start with styling the text here. So let's start with the H2 tag first, which we're seeing here at the bottom. And I'm just going to write H2 and then open and close swirly brackets, and then we're going to give this a font size of 250 pixels, or I'm sorry, 250%. And this is going to be based off of the default font size for the browser. So if you wanted, you could put a font size in the body, and then it'll be the percentage of that, say font size 16 pixels, for example. Then we're going to give this a font weight of 700, which is kind of a bold weight. Weight is for thin and bold text. The larger the number, the bolder the font. And then we're going to tell that text to align center, and we'll give it a padding top of 2%. So now if we refresh and we drop down to these H2 tags here, or H2 text, we have that aligning centered on the page. Okay, so now let's drop down and style the heading 3 text next. And we're going to give this a font size that's smaller than the heading 2, and it's going to be 175%. with a line height of 155%. And if we go up here and refresh, there we have our heading 3 text looking a little different already. Okay, and then let's drop down a line and we'll give this some padding. So we'll give this padding of 5% top and bottom, and then 0 left, right. Okay, and then let's give this a font weight, which is going to be smaller than the heading 2 at 400. And so if we refresh, now it's kind of become a little thinner, not as bold. So I just want to see what it looks like without the line height here. Okay, so it's a little narrower. Let's go ahead and keep the line height there. And then let's drop down and we can start on our paragraph tag. So I'm just going to write P, open and close swirly brackets. And then we're going to reference this paragraph text here that we're seeing throughout the website. So we're going to give this the same font. Well, let's give it a little smaller font size than the heading 3. And then we're going to give this a line height of 150%. And I forgot the colon here. So let me go ahead and correct that. Okay, and then drop down. And then let's give this a padding of 3% all around. Okay, and then let's go and refresh. And now we see the paragraph text here, creating some real space between the lines. Okay, so let's move back over to style the rest of our paragraph text here. So let's give this some indent at the beginning of the paragraph, similar to how we would when making a Word document, for example. So we'll just give this a text indent of 2%, and then let's drop down and we're going to tell this to text align justify, which is going to give it kind of the newspaper feel, where the right side of the paragraph is going to be in line, straight up and down vertically. So next, let's style the images here with the img tag, and let's give them a max width of 100%, and then we'll give them a height of auto, and then a width of auto, and then we'll tell it to have a margin on the bottom of -4 pixels. And the reason for this is because without it, when the images are sitting above those floating text sections, if you remember from the finished version, without the margin bottom at a negative, they're going to have a gap in between them and the text section. So with the negative margin by a little bit, it's going to line up perfectly on the finished version, as you'll see in a little bit when we start to add the colors and stuff to the different sections. So now let's drop down and move on to styling the header of the website. So this is kind of the first actual section of the page. And let me show you. So here we have the image, for example, where it lines up nice and perfectly sitting flush on top of the text sections beneath them. Okay, so let's drop down and I'm going to show you guys where the header is in our HTML to remind ourselves all the stuff that's going to be included within that section. So right here is the HTML5 tag header, and then we have the header inner, the logo, and the navigation inside of it. So now let's go back over and give our header some style. So we're going to start with the background color for the blue section up top. So we'll just say background dash color, and then this is going to be the hex value hashtag or pound 6991AC. Okay, and then drop down and we'll give the header a width of 100% and then a height of 86 pixels. And then if you save and we refresh, we're going to see a blue bar and our first color forming at the top of the website here. So we have the navigation sitting in there, but we don't have the logo yet, which we'll do in a second. But first, let me show you the next thing that we're going to style is the header inner, and that's going to allow it to sit centered on the page when we size the website up past a certain width. So just write for the header inner, since this is a div ID, write hashtag header dash inner, and then we'll give this a max width of 1200 pixels. So here's the header inner div ID. So now it has the max width, but we still need to tell it to center on the page. So we're going to tell it to do that with margin 0 auto. And now if we save it and refresh, we can size the website up and down, and you'll see that the navigation, at least so far, is just going to stay centered there on the page. Okay, so let's drop down and style our logo next, which is beneath the header inner div ID here. So we're just going to reference that with a ID for the div ID logo, or the ahref ID rather, for a link, and we're just going to give this a margin of 20 pixels all around. We're going to tell it to float to the left side of the screen, and then we'll give it a width of 200 pixels and a height of 60 pixels. And then we need the actual logo image to appear. So we're going to do this with the background URL style, and then inside of the URL parentheses we'll reference the image for the logo. So that's capital RD.png, and then after the open and close parentheses we're just going to tell it to no repeat, so it's only going to display once, and then it's going to center inside of the logo ID. So let me show you the image real quick that we're referencing. So that is rd.png. Later we're going to use a different image when we style it for the mobile version with a smaller RD here, which is going to be the RD mobile logo. So there we have it displaying at the top now, and it's lining up perfectly with the original. So this is kind of our first actual part of the website that's looking as it should, I guess. So now let's drop down to the navigation. I'm just going to create a quick note here in the CSS telling us that the navigation style is starting. So you do that with a / and then an asterisk, and then it's up to you if you want to do the dashes or not. I usually do 3 dashes at the beginning and then 2 at the end. Okay, so now we can drop down to the nav. So we're going to start by referencing the navigation with just the HTML5 nav tag. So that's just NAV, and then you can open and close the swirly brackets. And I just needed to close that comment out. So we're going to tell the navigation to float to the right side of the screen rather than the left, like the logo. And then we're going to give it some padding. So there we see it kind of centering on the screen inside of the header inner wrapper there. And we're going to give this a padding of 25 pixels on the top, 20 pixels on the right, and then 0 pixels for the bottom and the left. So with the padding it goes top, right, bottom, left, clockwise. Okay, so if we refresh, there's a little space up there on the upper right hand corner. And now we can drop down and move on to the menu icon style. So we're not actually going to see the menu icon until it's at the mobile width, but we're going to do the style here rather than later in the mobile CSS. So this is the menu icon right here, and that's the AID menu-icon. And let me show you where the image is right here. That's just going to be nav.png with the 3 lines there. So we're going to tell this to display hidden because we don't want it to actually display at this width, and then later when we do the mobile CSS we're going to tell it to display. So let's give this a width and a height of 40 pixels, and then we'll reference the background image similar to what we did for the logo image. So background URL, and then in the parentheses write img/nav.png. and then we'll just tell this to center. And then let's drop down a line, and we're going to style the hover, the link hover style for the menu icon. So just write a:/hover #menu-icon, and then we're going to give it a border radius for when we hover over it later. So this is going to give kind of like the box border radius. Okay, so just write border dash radius. So border dash radius, and then we'll do 4 pixels, 4 pixels, and then 0, 0. Alright, and now let's go back and style the unordered list for our navigation. So at this point, the navigation is really going to start to take its form at the full width as we style the unordered list and the list items here. So we're going to tell the unordered list to have a list style type of none, and then if we come back and refresh, you're going to see that those little dots that are inherent with unordered lists are going to disappear. We can't really see them down here because of the no margin or padding on the social unordered list. But let's drop down and style the list items now. So just write nav ULLI to reference the list items inside of the unordered list for the navigation links. And let's give that a font size of 150%. And now if I refresh, it's gigantic. Meant to do percent here. Okay, so font size 150%, and now there it is, looking pretty good. And then drop down a line. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tell the text to align or display inline block. So that's going to have the navigation list items displaying next to one another, as you see here. So it's starting to take its form like the original. Okay, and then drop down a line, and we're going to tell it to float to the left side. And that's not going to float to the left side of the screen. It's going to float to the left side within the actual unordered list. And then we'll give it a padding of 10 pixels all around each list item. So then if we refresh, now it's pretty much lining up. We just have to give the actual text its style here. So we're going to do that by referencing the links, and we're going to add a font family, the Allegria Sans font family. So let's write nav ULLIA for the navigation list item links, and then we're going to give that a color of hashtag F5 F5 F5, which is kind of that off-white color. And then drop down, and we need to style the hover color for when we hover over the link. So write nav ULLIA:hover, and then this is going to be kind of that light blue shade that meshes well with the darker blue background, I think. And this is going to be the color hashtag C3D7DF. So C3D7DF. Alright, and then we're going to style the current class. So that is going to be the same color, C3D7DF, and that's going to be kind of the active navigation list item link for what page we're on. In this case, the home page, as you see, it's a different color than the rest of the links there with that shade of blue. So we refresh. There we have it, displaying nicely. We just need to get rid of the underline and give the font style, add a font family, I should say. So let's do that now. So we're just going to reference the same font family from above. It's that Allegria Sans, and then write comma, sans dash serif. Okay, and then if we refresh, there it goes, and let's just get rid of the underline. So drop down to nav ULLIA, and we're going to tell it to text decoration none to remove the underline. Okay, and then refresh, and there we have it, displaying nice and neatly like the original here. Okay, and then we can size it up and down, and it's going to stay centered with our navigation, or header rather, inner ID. So let's move down and style the banner now. So I'm just going to create a quick little note saying this is the end of the navigation style here in the CSS. Okay, and then let's start styling the banner by referencing the actual banner class, similar to the header that we did, and we're going to give this a width of 100%, and then the same background color as the header, which is that blue shade. So just write background dash color, so background dash color hashtag 6991AC. Alright, and then if we go and refresh, there we have the background color showing up. But now what we need to do is create a banner inner kind of wrapper, similar to what we did with the navigation, to give it a max width and center it on the page as we flex the page. So just write dot banner dash inner, and then we're going to give this a width of, I'm going to do 1100 pixels. I think the header was 1200, but it looks a little nicer with the logo and navigation slightly wider than this, I think. So it's going to be about 100 pixels less. And then we're going to tell it to margin 0 auto to display it centered on the page. And then if we come back and refresh, there we go, the image has kind of sized down a tiny bit, and now it's staying centered on the page here. So now we can drop down and let's get started on these 1/4 sections with the icons and the heading titles there. So we'll reference that with the class period, so it's period 1-4th, and let's give it a width of 25% since there's 4 sections, and then we'll tell it to float to the left side of the screen, and we'll have the text aligning center within the 1/4 sections. Alright, so now if we go over and just refresh the page that we've been working on, we're going to start to see these 1/4 sections display here right in the center of the 1/4. So just remember that if you're styling your own website, for the different sections, you can just divide the width. So if you're doing 2 columns, just do 50%, 3, it's 33.3333, and so on. So now let's reference the IDs for the 1/4 classes to allow it so we can give different background colors to the 4 different 1/4 sections. So we'll just reference the first one with the HTML ID, and then we'll give it a background color, which is hashtag F1 AA90. Okay, and then go ahead and save that. And now if we take a quick look at it, we're going to see that orange section start to appear here. And now let's drop down, and the next one is the CSS ID. So just write hashtag CSS, and then we'll give this one a background color, and the hex value for that is BEB9AD. Okay, and refresh, and this is going to be kind of that light brown color. And now let's do the SEO part that has that mint green color that matches the lamp in the banner image. So just write hashtag SEO, open and close swirly brackets, and then background color AA, or hashtag AADCD2. Okay, and then there we have that mint green color. And let's drop down and do the last 1/4 section class ID. And this is the social ID, and we'll give this a background color of A2B2C1. Okay, and then refresh, and there we have all of the 4 colors laying out the same here as the original. So let's just style the icons now, and then we'll make that text white. So just write 1-4 for the 1/4 class, the section class 1/4, and let's style the icons. So we have the I we're going to reference. So 1/4 class, I, open and close the swirly brackets, and then we'll give that kind of an off-white color here, which is hashtag F0F0F0. Okay, and then drop down, and let's give that a font size so we can enlarge the icons, and just write 500% for the font size. Alright, so there we have them looking quite nice. We just need to add some padding. So we're going to add some top padding of 13%, 0 padding on the right, 4% bottom in between that and the heading 3 tag, and then 0 padding on the left. Okay, so now I think it's looking just like the original, except for the H3 color. So we'll just need to make that white. But since the rest of the text is still sitting on a white background, let's keep it a dark color for now. So what we'll do at this point is the first inner wrapper for the 2 column sections with the images and the text. So just write inner wrapper class here, and then we're going to tell this to float to the left. We're going to give it a width of 100%, and then that light blue background color, which is hashtag C3D, so it's C3D7DF. Okay, and then if we refresh, there we have that light blue color, similar to the original here. So this inner wrapper that we're styling is going to have the article and the aside tags sitting within them, where we have the image on the article side in this case, and then the text on the aside tag. So here's the article ID for this one. It's called tablet. So let's just reference that article HTML tag, and then we'll reference the tablet ID. So just write article, open and close the swirly brackets, and then write float left. Okay, and then drop down and write margin 0 auto, and then give it a width of 50%. Alright, and then height auto. Okay, and then if we refresh here, this is going to be the 50% section here. So actually we don't really need that margin 0 auto because the image is already centered, but that's alright. Okay, so just drop down beneath the article section here, and then let's reference the article ID here, which is tablet. So just write hashtag tablet, and then open and close, and we'll give that the same background color as above. So that's hashtag C3D 7DF. Okay, and then write aside, and it's going to float to the right, and then we'll give that a margin of 0 auto, similar to the article, and then we'll give it a width of 50%, and then a height of auto. Okay, so now let's make a second tablet ID here. So we'll just call this tablet 2, and let's give it the background color of A2 B1 C1. Okay, so now we just have to go over to the HTML real quick to change that ID for the aside. So on aside ID here in the first inner wrapper, just make it tablet 2, and there we have kind of that purple-like color. Okay guys, so now that we're starting to lay out all the colors for the backgrounds, let's do some changes to some of the CSS styling towards the top of the style sheet here. So navigate up to the top around the area where we have the paragraph and heading tags. So I'm going to add the font style to the paragraph tag here, and then add an off-white color. So just write color hashtag F5 F5 F5. And let me put the hashtag symbol in. And also, I still think that font is a little big. Just to add the sans after Allegria, so it looks like this. Okay, and then if we refresh, now the paragraph text is looking good. And let's just change the color of the heading 2 titles here. So I'm just going to write color and then F5 F5 F5, and then let me close out this padding top style here that I forgot earlier. Okay, and now we have the heading 2 and paragraph text displaying in that white color. Let's just add the white to the H3 too, so take care of it now. So the 1/4 columns will look like the original. Okay, F5, 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 and then save, refresh, and now we have all the color, the text rather, displaying in their proper color. So some of the text is still there, we're just not able to see it just yet until we lay out the rest of the background colors, but just make sure you have the font family correct with the sans in there for the paragraph, and then the white or off-white colors for paragraph, heading 2 and heading 3. Okay, so now let's drop down and style the next inner wrapper. So let's go back over here and just write inner, so the class inner-wrapper-2, and then we're going to tell this to float to the left side of the screen, and then we'll give this a width of 100%, and then we'll give it a background color, which is hashtag C3D7DF. And then if we refresh, we're going to have that light blue color spanning the next, well, all three now, inner wrapper sections. Okay, so now we're going to style the rest of the article and asides for the 50% sections with the text and the images. Let's just start to get a little bit of stuff displaying underneath first. So I'm going to add some color here to the inner wrapper 3 for the 1/3 sections beneath that. So let's tell this to float left, and then we'll give this a width of 100%, and then its background color, which is hashtag AADCDF. So that's going to be that kind of mint green color. So now we can see pretty much all of our text displaying here, since it's white, and now we have the colored background. Okay, so now drop down a line, and then let's just style the 1/3 sections real quick. So this is the 1/3 section class here. But first, let's go up a tad here so we can style these text blocks before we move down to the 1/3 section, so we don't have to come back here later. So let's just take care of these IDs here for the mobile and desktop, following the tablet ID that we already styled. Okay, so just beneath the tablet 2 style there, the tablet 2 ID, let's start with the mobile ID, and then we'll do the desktop one. So mobile here for the article, and then desktop. So this is gonna just give some color to the backgrounds of the text sections here next to the images. So just write div ID, or hashtag to reference the ID, mobile, and then give it the background color of hashtag BEB9AD. So BEB as in boy, 9AD, and then drop down and let's do the desktop one. So this is going to be that kind of orange background color. So write background dash color colon hashtag F1A A90. And now if we go back to the original version and refresh, there we have the colors laid out. So everything is styled at this full width version down to the 1/3 sections, which we're gonna do right now with the IDs for the Google marketing and customers sections. So just drop down beneath the 1/3 class, or I'm sorry, the inner wrapper 3, and we'll do the 1/3 style here. So here we have the 1/3 class, which we looked at before, and then they each have their own IDs. Okay, so we're going to give this that 33.3% width, and just make sure you do a bunch of 3s after the period here, and then we'll tell it to float to the left side of the screen, and we'll tell it to have the text align center. So text align center. So now we're going to have those heading 3s centered. All right. And now let's give them each their ID. So we'll start with the Google one, then marketing and customers to give them each their individual colors here. Okay, so ID. All right. So hashtag Google, open and close the swirly brackets, and then background dash color A2 B1 C1, and then close that out, and then reference the marketing div ID here. So open and close background color colon hashtag BEB9 AD, and then customers background color, and this is going to be the same mint green background color, so AADCD2. Okay, so save that, and then if you go back to your web browser and refresh it, you're going to see the 3 column sections displaying with each of their colors. So next we'll drop down beneath the 1/3 section classes and style the single column bar for the smiley face here. So this is the section ID, and we'll just call this smiley. So just write hashtag smiley, open and close the brackets, and then give it the background color, hashtag AADCD2 for that sort of mint green color, and then we'll just add a little padding to create some space between the smiley face and then the sections above and beneath it. So just write padding 0, 0, and then 1%, and we're going to tell it to clear both underneath here. So this kind of creates an invisible horizontal rule to separate that from the 1/3 sections and the footer beneath that div ID there. Okay, so now we have everything down to the footer styled, so I'm just going to create a quick comment in the style sheet telling us that the footer is now starting, and then we can reference the HTML5 footer tag. So just write that /* for your CSS comment, and then start footer, and then beneath that write footer, open and close the brackets, and then we'll give it a background color, which is going to be that same blue color that we styled the header and the banner with. So this is the blue right here. And then so the background color hashtag is going to be, or hex value is 6991AC. Okay, and then let's give the footer a width, but first there we have that color displaying, and now let's give it a width of 100%, and then we can style the social media buttons in there. Okay, and so now let's style the unordered list for the social buttons here, which is the UL class social, so we'll just reference that with dot for the class and then social, and let's give that a list style type of none, similar to what we did for the navigation, which is going to remove the little dots next to it, and then we'll tell them to text align center, and we're going to tell the list items, so just write social li to display inline. So now they're centered, but we want them to be next to one another, so just write display inline, and now if we refresh, there they are lined up nicely like our navigation. Now let's style the actual icons. So write .social I, open and close the brackets, and then we'll give it a font size of 460%. Okay, and then write margin 1% all around the icons, and then we'll give them a padding of 5% for the top, right, and bottom, and then 4% on the left. Or you could do 5% all around, just do padding 5% and then close it, and it should look good that way too. And then color, hashtag C3D7DF. So this is the same color, I think, that we used for the navigation before, or when the navigation is an active link. And then we're going to change it so when we hover over it, it turns white. So I messed up here. Let me just change this pixels to percentage, and then if we refresh, there we have them displaying quite nicely here for us, almost as good as the original. We just need to add the hover style now, as I said. So drop down and let's reference that social class again. So just write .social space I:hover, and then open and close the brackets. And then we'll give this the F5 off-white color. So write color, hashtag F5, 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 and then close that. And then we can refresh and see the color changes as we hover over it. So that looks pretty nice, I'd say. Now let's do the socket, as some people would call it, which is the very bottom section. We just are calling this footer class second for the little purple rocket design copyright thing at the bottom, and it has a tiny mint green border on the top, which I'll show you here in a second. So just write footer.second for the second class, or class second, and then write border dash top 1 pixel, 1px solid, hashtag AADCD2 for that mint green color, and then we'll give this a background color of hashtag 544B59, which is kind of that darker purple color. And then we're going to give this a maximum height. So it's a little taller than I think it should be at this point. And then let me just show you the bar here. So you can change that pixel if you want that to be, change the pixel amount if you want that border to be a little more solid and larger. But let's drop down a line and give it its max height. So I'm just going to give it a max height here of 50 pixels, and you can change this also if you want, of course. Okay, and we'll fix that little white stuff here in a second. I'm actually going to make it a little larger. So let's go with 55 pixels. And then drop down a line and give it, we're going to give it the text align center and then margin 0. And then if we refresh, actually we'll want to do the text align center to the paragraph text itself there. So just write footer.second again for the second class, and then P for the paragraph text. Open and close, padding 5% top, 0 right. I'm sorry, pixels, 5 pixels top, 0 right, 9 pixels bottom, and then 0 pixels on the left, and then tell it to text align center. Or let's see here. Yep, so we do want a text align center in the paragraph rather than the second class itself here. So then we refresh. Okay, and there we have it displaying quite nicely. I'm just pulling it up a little bit because some of this is off screen. And that concludes all of the full width CSS. So it's time to move back over to our style sheet, and let's just drop down to the last style that we added and get started with the media queries to give the website its responsiveness. So navigate down here, and beneath the footer.second class there with the paragraph text, I'm going to write a comment saying that the media queries are now starting. So I get really excited about doing the media queries and giving the website its mobile version. So I'm just going to write in all caps media, exclamation point, and so on, and then I'll close that comment. So let's go ahead and start the queries. So just write at media space screen and in parentheses max dash width 768 pixels, and then outside of the parentheses open and close the swirly brackets. So basically we're saying that whenever the screen is at a width of 768 pixels or below, this is how we want the website to display. So let's start with some of the simple stuff, like the headings and the paragraph text, and then we'll get to the body and header layout of the website. So we're just going to change the font size for the headings and the paragraph text from the 250 and 175%, for example, down a little bit. But before we do that, let me just bring up a version of how it looks on the mobile version right now so we can see the changes taking effect as we style the media query. So it's looking kind of messy, of course, with all of these 4-column sections, for example, displaying at on the mobile here. But let's go ahead and start with the H2 tag. So just write H2, open and close the brackets, and then write 150%. So you just need to remember that when you're doing the media queries, the styles for whatever it is we're styling, the H2, H3 header, it's going to be within the brackets for the media screen and max width style for the media queries. So now let's just get a side-by-side here with the original so we can see the changes taking effect here. So now we just styled the H2 text, so the mobile tablet desktop text is looking a little better and smaller to match the width. And now let's do the H3 tags. So just write font size 125%, and then you can save that. And then the paragraph text will just make a font size of 120%. So there we have the H3s looking a little better underneath the icons here. All right, and then the paragraph text, as I said, 120%. Okay, and then drop down and let's style the header next. But first, if we go ahead and refresh this, we're going to get the paragraph text looking nice. So now let's do the header. So let's give the header a position of absolute. Okay, so now if we refresh, we're going to see that the header, it's kind of taken its position there with that 86% width, and then the other stuff is kind of displaying behind it at this point. But we're going to take care of that in a few moments when we style the banner. Okay, so drop down and let's style the logo now. So just write hashtag for the div ID logo, and then we'll give this a margin of 15% top, 0 right, 20, I'm sorry, that's 15 pixels, 0 right, and then 20 and negative 25. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to go get the smaller logo version, and let me just refresh this. I just have to add the pixels to the number 20 there. But let's just put the background URL tag here, or style here, to get the smaller logo displaying for us from the images. So this is going to be the mobile logo version that we referenced earlier in the series. So let me just show you. So this is the rd_mobile.png image. And here it is right here. So it's a little smaller than the full width logo. Okay, so just write img/rd_mobile.png, and then we're just going to write no repeat center, or you could just write center in this case, and I think that would be fine too. So now if we refresh, we have it displaying quite nicely here, except for the pixel amount for the bottom. There we go. Okay, so now let's drop down and let's style the menu icon next. So we're going to tell it to display. Now if you remember from the full width, it was displaying hidden, so it wasn't actually displaying. But now we're going to tell it to display inline block. So let me just show you that up here in the navigation style. So right here it says display hidden, and we're just going to change that to display inline block. So when you're styling for the mobile version, you only need to write the styles for the things that you want to change. We don't need to write all of the style for the icon or the navigation, only the stuff we want to change when it's on the mobile. Okay, so now let's style the nav's unordered list here. So write nav ul and then comma nav active, or nav:\active ul, open and close the brackets, and we're actually going to tell this to display none at first because we don't want the list items here to display until we hover over the button. So now they're not displaying, and in a minute we'll tell it to display when we hover over that button here. So let's do that real quick before we do the rest of the nav ul style here. So just write nav:\hover ul and then display block, and this is going to tell it to display when we hover over the icon here. So right now it's kind of looking weird and fidgety, but we'll correct that. So go back up one style here, the nav ul, nav active ul, and we're going to give this a z index of 1000. So when you have a positive z index like that, z index 1000, it's basically telling the browser that this is an important style and we want it to display on top of everything else. Alright, and then let's give this a position of absolute, and then padding 20 pixels, and then we'll give it a background of that same blue shade, so it's 6991AC : and then if we refresh, see now it's starting to take its shape, but it's kind of off to the side of the screen, so we'll correct that. So drop down and you can write margin right, or just right 20 pixels. And then drop down and we'll do margin top 20 pixels. Okay, so now it's looking a little better. So we have that kind of space off to the right there. And then top 60 pixels. Okay, and then refresh. And there we have it. Let's add the border, and then we'll take care of the text and have it aligned properly in a second. So write border 1 pixel solid pound FFF for white, and then we'll give it a border radius. So border dash radius 2 pixels top left, 0 top right, 2 pixels bottom right, and then 2 pixels bottom left. So there we have it displaying with the border and a little bit of radius. And I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can change the radius, but let's finish this style real quick and take care of the alignment. So now just tell it to have a width of 50%. Okay, so there we go. Now it's looking pretty good, except for we need to align this text here for the list items. So let's say we want to do a border radius of 10 pixels. As you can see on the top left right now, we have kind of a rounded corner up there. So that's up to you if you want to change the border radius or the pixel value for the border itself. You can do that. I didn't really mess with it too much myself, but maybe you can come up with something that looks even a little cooler than this. So I'll just refresh here, and there's a larger border radius, or border itself. And let me just change this stuff back. And now let's drop down and let's give the list items their width and add a little padding with the alignment of the text in the center. So just write text align center, and then give it a width of 100%. So width 100%, and then we're going to give it a little padding after this too, on the top and the bottom. So refresh, and there we have it. Let's just add a little padding, and you can space it out more or less depending on how you want it to look here. I'm just going to have padding of 10 pixels on the top and bottom, and then 0 on the left right. Okay, so let's match it up with the finished version here and see how it looks. So it looks good. I can't tell any difference there. I think it's original. So now let's drop down and let's style the banner image that's displaying just beneath the header here. So let's just reference the banner class here with .banner, and then we're going to give it a padding on the top of 86 pixels. And then if you refresh it, it's going to create that space between it and the header above. So next, let's drop down and let's get to the 1/4 sections here, and then we'll work our way down through the rest of the page. So just write .1-4, float left, and then width 100% of the screen. And then if we refresh, there we have it displaying quite nicely. We just need to size down the icons a little bit, maybe take a little padding away. Also, I don't think we actually need that float left tag. That might have been included above, but I'll just leave it in there. Okay, so let's style the icon. So just write dot 1-4th space I to reference the icon for the font awesome icons. And remember, the I, it really stands for italic. It's just being used for the icons in this case. And then write font size 350%. So this is going to be down from, I think we used 500% originally. And then give it a padding of 4% on the top, 0 on the right, and then 1% bottom and 0 left. And now let's refresh. Okay, and there we have it lining up quite nicely here. Alright, so now we can drop down to the next section, which is going to be the article HTML5 tag. So the article section is going to have the image in there for the tablet. So let's write article, open and close, and then let's just give that its width at 100%. So here, for reference, is where all of the articles are going to display inside of the HTML. So when we do this one simple article tag for the media queries, it's going to affect all of the article tags inside of the entire design without us having to style the individual IDs for the different colors, so the tablet and mobile and desktop, for example. And the same will be true for the 1/3 sections with the Google marketing customers and so on. So I'm actually going to get rid of this float left tag style selector because we had that included above. So all we need is the width at 100%, and now we have the tablet displaying quite nicely here on the mobile version. Okay, so I'll get rid of this extra space here, and let's drop down and style the aside next, which is going to be that purple text section here, as well as the image here, and then the orange text section beneath. Okay, so just write aside, open and close, and then width 100%. Okay, so there it goes. So it's looking quite nice, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put in a style here telling the mobile image to actually display none, because I think it's going to look cleaner with just the desktop image there. So what we'll need to do is just reference the class that we created for, or actually we don't have a class here, so let's make one. So we're just going to make a quick class here in this aside and call it aside class hand-mobile. So aside class hand-mobile, and then we'll reference that in the CSS. So just write .hand-mobile. And then open and close the brackets and write display none. So now if we refresh, the hand holding the cell phone image is no longer displaying, and I think it looks a lot cleaner like this. Okay, so now let's drop down and let's style the 1/3 sections, and then we'll get to the icons at the very bottom. So just write for the 1/3 class that you see right here, we'll reference that with dot 1-third, and similar to the aside, 1/4 and article sections, we're just going to give this a width of 100%. Okay, so now if we refresh, we have everything displaying as it should, except for the social buttons at the bottom, which I think is my favorite part here. So we're just going to simply change the size of the icons here. So we'll reference that with the social class and then I for icons. So drop down a line and write dot social I, open and close, and then we'll give this a font size of 180%. Okay, and now if we refresh, there we have the icons displaying quite in line with one another here. And that does it, you guys. This concludes the entire mobile website from scratch series as we laid out the HTML and CSS here for the Rocket Design website. So I hope you learned a lot in this video and you go on to create your own awesome websites from start to finish. I thank you for watching. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me this whole time. Please remember to subscribe and share this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.